finishing up our unit on nature's balance, on the animal groups, why they're important. So let's go ahead and look at this, watch this video, and make those connections about what we have learned about this unit in science and what you wrote about in your final copy, okay? Think about what animals are herbivores, carnivores, omnivores. How do you know?
A beautiful rainforest, a busy farm, a coral reef filled with life and color. These are all examples of ecosystems. An ecosystem is the collection of all the things found in a particular place. See this bear? The bear, the fish it's trying to catch, the river where the fish lives, the trees, the grass, all of these things form a balance. They're all part of one ecosystem. What happens when nature loses its balance?
What do you guys think? What happens when nature loses its balance? When something is out of whack? Or, in other words, if all herbivores were gone, what would happen to nature? Some of my groups, we've already talked about this, right? The food chain collapses. If one thing is gone, eventually it'll collapse, right? So all things are super important. My group that read about when the wolves returned, right? When they returned to Yellowstone, everything was back in balance again. But when the wolves were out of Yellowstone, whoo, it was a big old mess, wasn't it? All right, because everything in the food chain is so important.
The natural balance found in an ecosystem is very delicate, and a single act could have a positive or negative impact on the entire ecosystem. For example, the island of Guam had an ecosystem that was thrown off balance when some brown tree snakes were accidentally released on the island. There were no animals on Guam that could eat those snakes, and now there are way too many snakes in Guam. Sometimes people do things like polluting the water that damage ecosystems. But sometimes, even the things people do to try to help an ecosystem can cause problems. Years ago, for instance, planting kudzu seemed to be a good idea since they can help improve the soil for plants. However, kudzu grows so quickly and has taken over so much land that it's now considered a pest weed, and many farmers want to get rid of it. Which is worse, too much or too little? Neither is good. All parts of a system should be in balance so that one part doesn't overrun all the others. One way you can tell if an ecosystem is in balance is by looking at the health of the plants and animals that live there. For example, polar bears seem to be losing weight and having fewer cubs than in the past. That's a sign that there are problems in their ecosystem. How are parts of the ecosystem connected? One way ecosystems are connected is through food chains. For example, in the ocean, corals eat plankton. Reef fish eat corals. Larger fish like sharks eat the reef fish. If any one element in the food chain changes, bad things can happen. For example, the water in parts of the ocean has too much acid in it, so the coral are dying off. This means that lots of fish won't have food or shelter, and they may die off too. If the fish die, there will be less food for humans to eat. Humans can help maintain the health of our ecosystem by keeping everything in balance. As long as we can do that, nature will treat us well in return.
All right, go ahead to the next slide.